You're listening to Unpacked, The Truth About Hoarding, a podcast that goes beyond the mess to explore the heart, humanity, and healing behind hoarding disorder. Hosted by Matt Williams.
All right. Welcome back to Unpacked, The Truth About Hoarding. And I'm your host, the commonly named Matt Williams, coming to you live from high above the Rockwellian Main Street of Irwin, Pennsylvania. And today I'd like to talk about something that I don't think gets nearly enough attention: loneliness. When most people think about hoarding disorder, they think about clutter. They think about overflowing rooms, boxes stacked to the ceiling, maybe even television shows. But after years of working alongside people affected by hoarding disorder, I've come to believe that clutter isn't the greatest tragedy. Loneliness is. Imagine this for a moment. Imagine living in a home that you're embarrassed for anyone to see. Imagine looking out the window when someone knocks on the door and hoping they'll go away. Imagine declining invitations because you don't want people asking why they can't come to your house next time. Imagine birthdays, holidays, family gatherings slowly disappearing from your life. Not because people stopped caring, but because shame convinced you to disappear. That's the part most people never see. Hoarding disorder doesn't just fill homes. It empties lives. One of the saddest things I hear isn't, "I have too much stuff." It's, "I thought I was the only one." I've heard that sentence more times than I can count. And every time it kind of breaks my heart because nobody should have to carry something that heavy alone. That's why support groups matter. Not because they teach people how to organize, not because they're magic. Sometimes they feel like magic, but they're not. It's because they tell someone something they've been desperate to hear, and that is, you belong here. When people first walk into one of our groups, they're nervous. Some don't make eye contact. Some apologize for being there. And some barely speak. They're expecting judgment because that's what they've experienced almost everywhere else. They're expecting people to tell them what they're doing wrong. They're expecting yet another lecture, another cleanup plan, another reminder that they've somehow failed. But instead, they're greeted by people who smile, who understand, people who don't gasp when they tell their story. Something remarkable then happens. Nobody has to explain why making one decision can feel impossible. Nobody laughs. Nobody rolls their eyes because everyone in that room understands. Maybe not the exact circumstances, but the feeling. One of my favorite moments happens, and it happens about every single group. Someone shares a story they've never told anyone. Maybe it's about buying something they didn't need, or about being too embarrassed to invite family over. Maybe it's about feeling overwhelmed by that one room in the house. Then someone across the room quietly says, "I do that too." Those three words, "I do too," are incredibly powerful because shame survives in secrecy. And connection destroys secrecy, and by association, destroys shame. People often ask me, what makes peer support different? The answer is simple. You can learn about hoarding disorder in a textbook. You can earn degrees, certifications. You can become an expert. Those things do matter, but there's something that happens when someone says, "I've been there." Suddenly, hope becomes believable, not theoretical, personal. Another thing I love about our groups is watching friendships develop. It almost never happens immediately. At first, everyone leaves when the session ends. But after a few weeks, people start to linger. They start talking outside the room where we meet or in a parking lot. Then they exchange phone numbers. They meet for lunch, then they call each other after difficult days, and before long they've built something many thought they would never have again: community. And here's what's fascinating. Even though everyone has hoarding disorder in there, they all arrive there differently from different paths. One person struggles because of grief, another because of perfectionism, another because of trauma, even another because of overwhelming generosity. Different stories, different personalities, different lives. That means each person sees the world a little differently. And because of that, they can become teachers for one another, even though they're all similarly affected. Sometimes one sentence from another group member accomplishes more than anything I could have said. Not because I'm the facilitator, but because they're peers. They've earned credibility through shared experience. People often ask me what the most important part of our support groups is. The workbook? No. The homework? No. The education? Those things matter. But they're not the most important part. The most important part is that every week someone walks into a room believing they're broken and walks out realizing they're human. That changes everything. Television tells us that recovery begins with a dumpster. I've never seen that happen. Recovery begins with hope. Hope begins with connection. And connection begins the moment someone realizes I'm not alone anymore. As we close today, I'd like to ask you something. Who truly understands your story? Not the version you post online, not the version people assume, but the real story. If the answer is nobody, I'd encourage you to change that. Healing almost never happens in isolation. It happens in relationship, whether that's a support group, a trusted friend, a counselor, or one person just willing to listen without judgment. Because no matter what you're carrying, it becomes lighter when someone helps carry it with you. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Unpacked. Talk soon.
Thanks for listening to Unpacked, the truth about hoarding. For more information or support, visit fighttheblightinc.com. We'll see you next time.